Hello, guys. I'm Shane Davis, 20-year comic book veteran. I'm here with Yanzi Lynn, and we are talking about the American comic book industry once again. This time it's really bad. I think this might be the biggest, baddest year I've seen in the American comic book industry in my entire life, being a comic book fan, not just a comic book pro. And I've seen the direct market crash back in the 90s. And it was nothing like this from what I understand. Now, back in the 90s, it was a speculator crash, right? And nobody's assigning blame yet to the direct market crashing right now. But I guess as of today, Diamond cancels all orders from Marvel, Boom, Dark Horse, IDW, and more. And that would include Image, I'm pretty sure. So all the big boys right off the bat, comic book shops, if you have a Diamond account still, you cannot order any of those books through Diamond at all. None. Zero whatsoever. It's official today. Diamond cannot carry Marvel and DC comics. Now, I want to go back and talk about the 90s crash being a speculator boom versus today's crash, which is about a lot of debt. Okay. Yanti, what is the debt Diamond was in?
33 million, if I'm not wrong.
Right. $33 million of debt has caused this crash. And nobody's going to tell you. Marvel and DC right now trying to sell big movies. Superman around the corner. Fantastic Four around the corner. None of them want to get honest that there is a market crash in the American comic book industry. But it is. It absolutely is. And yes, we've stuck in our head in the sand with all the woke comics, the diversity push, the Pride Month issues, all of that stuff. We've gouged debt in the American comic book industry by causing people to order qualifying covers for books that retailers can't sell, just to have a few variant covers they can sell for $100 a pop. This is where this debt came from. And maybe looking back in history, somebody somewhere will actually catalog this event right. But I feel like it's never been dealt with, and we're $33 million in debt in the American comic book industry because nobody called it what it was. And that's producing a lot of comics that nobody was buying. And yes, retailers ordered, but nobody was actually selling them, therefore the debt. Now, Diamond, we've talked about in our channel how it's closing down and all of that stuff and what it means to the American comic book industry. But you know, there maybe is a future at the end of this, but we'll see. Let's get into it.
So Penguin Random House, because Diamond owns them millions of dollars, and they came up with a statement that said, yeah, anything owed before so-and-so date, which is before it's taken over by the new owners, we don't necessarily have to pay you back. And if we do, we won't tell you when it happens anyway. So you think Penguin is going to continue staying in business with some company like that? Nah, so they pulled out, which means that you can order your Marvel, your DC, including books like Tokyo Pop, and even with their webtoon stuff. You can't even get them anymore because they all went to Penguin Random House. Now, that is not the only thing that happened, of course. We know that in the recent days, companies like Udon actually pulled out of Diamond because they could see the writing on the wall. And we have companies like Dynamite saying, you owe us $500,000 since last month. We would like to be paid, please. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Do you think they're going to pay them? No, because this was before the cut-off date, which I believe was something like the 25th of May or something when the new owners took over. So it's like, this $500,000, it's gone, man. Dynamite. Too bad about that.
Yeah. And that was the whole thing for people that are newbies. And I'm going to remind some people, Diamond's position in the American comic book industry is a distributor. They're the middleman. They're the middleman between the brick and mortar shops, your comic shop, and the publisher. And what that actually means, basically the quick point of this is Diamond is holding the money for a few months. Right? They take the books from the publishers, but they've already taken the pre-orders from the stores, so the publisher knows what to print. And because of that, they basically end up holding a pot of money for probably anywhere between 6 weeks to 2.5 months, maybe longer, depending on if they're returnable or not. So this is a big problem. It's like a game of musical chairs. And people that hung in there with Diamond maybe end up with no chair to sit on. and you're owed $500,000. And that's not funny. And I'm not laughing at it. But this is why DC Comics was quick to get out during COVID, because they already didn't like what was going on at Diamond. And I have high up DC guys who had talked about it prior to that to me. And there was always a big concern. There was always this contingency plan if Diamond went under, that they would, Lunar and stuff like that, would other distributors through basically other comic shops would start becoming a distributor just to keep the American comic book industry alive. Today, there's a lot of people going to be owed money. Okay, you can't go into dealing with anybody with bankruptcy and somebody somewhere somehow is going to be owed money. This is going to be a lot of publishers, and actually maybe some comic shops. Maybe they're owed books that they'll never get. We don't know.
Well, furthermore, for people who think, well, it's going to turn around, it won't be so bad. The winner of the original bid to buy Diamond's bankruptcy was Alliance Entertainment, right? But then Diamond said, no, we don't want to sell to you. Alliance sued to get them to honor their bid. And suddenly Alliance said, okay, hang on. You didn't tell us that Wizards of the Coast cut you guys off for not being able to pay your bills. So then, okay, you know what? We agree. We're not buying you guys anymore. But wait, we will literally buy out your senior staffers from you, which is what they did. 7 senior Diamond Comics staff were hired by Alliance Entertainment. So they're gutting the people with the most experience from the Diamond Company, probably with, some nice pay packages and stuff, probably telling them, hey, you can see the writing on the wall. People are selling parts of the company off bit by bit. Diamond Select Toys, as a segment of the Diamond Distributor company, was cut off already. They shut it down. So they say, you know what, come work for us instead. So I think this is a sign that whoever that's getting Diamond is not going to get the brains or the management know-how, which may or may not be a loss.
Well, one of the big things that was a value of Diamond was the retailer list, right? And I had seen that list working at Image Comics, and it wasn't exactly an updated list, up to date. A lot of the shops were specifically not even brick and mortar shops; they'd just be mail order shops, right? Like your subscription sites where you could just get your comics in the mail. But and the reality is that list is public. Basically, it came public during this bankruptcy process, right? They had to submit all their books, Diamond did, and through that, somehow I guess all these accounts became part of the public filing of bankruptcy. So basically, one of the biggest gets to buying Diamond was already there for whoever was wanting to buy Diamond. The only other thing you really are buying is the warehouse space, the forklifts, and some of the choice employees. The choice employees here are already being pulled out of that company. So, there's really nothing. I hate saying that too, because, but Diamond right now might not actually be much of anything. And there's not a lot of retailer confidence still left in Diamond with going through this whole mess. The stock of the company is going down every day. Most comic shops have already been moving over to Penguin Random House, and people are going to say, you guys just make this out to be nothing, right? No, there's a lot of money. Look, they ran up that $33 million in debt. Okay, comic shops and the shit they were ordering ran that bill up. Even if we're switching over to Penguin Random House, these shops are not going to be able to go in debt like they did with Diamond to Penguin Random House. There is going to be a cause and effect of this in the way retailers order variant covers, the way they qualify for things. And again, nobody's assessing this situation correctly. Obviously, the American comic book industry has been making unsellable product, and that is the issue. That's how the debt was acquired. Publishers like, say, Dynamite, there's not many companies that can be like owed $500,000 and it's not going to disrupt their business as usual situation, right? They have printers they owe money to, they have staff, they have artists that are waiting on paychecks, and they don't get that money, they can't do it. Now, there's a lot of other small press people that aren't big guns that can get in with Penguin Random House. What does that mean? What does that mean for, say, small mom and pop companies, even some that you may have heard of, like say Xenoscope. Xenoscope is not going to get in with their type of I don't know, smutty, I hate to use the word smutty, but adult type comics of Snow White or something like that. They're not going to get into Penguin Random House. Okay, so some of these independent comics, like Udon's another example. Is Penguin Random House going to open up the gate for them? Everybody, I mean, that's not what Penguin Random House is there for. And to be honest, if Penguin Random House isn't going to let every publisher in, how long is it going to be before Penguin Random House is deciding what type of content they will actually distribute for Marvel and DC? Maybe one day they just said, we're done with floppies, only trades from here on out. Now, Filbo Distributions, I heard about them maybe a month ago. I think Billy Tucci was maybe mentioning them to me, and good, he's actually running She through this. There will be opportunity for other companies to come in and try to get independent, smaller companies, books, independent comics into the American comic book shop. And there should be, because really Marvel and DC, the big boys, is what made this mess. And I know everybody wants to blame Diamond, but Marvel and DC are to blame for acquiring that much debt with Diamond and the unsellable product. Now, the little guys, I think, are going to be like the heart and soul of the American comic book industry. And some of these guys having access to a comic shop, if that's what they want to do, is really important. I would like for people to keep an eye on, say, the performance of outfits like this. And there'll probably be some other guys coming in. I mean, we are in a digital age. Maybe it's not as complicated as you think. But retailers are going to have faith in this, and there is going to have to be some goodwill manifested here, right, to get this to work. I'm a big firm believer that independent comics is the future of the American comic book industry. That's why at 9 Lives Comics, we sell our comics online, and we're getting ready to launch a new book. So if you guys haven't, please go over here, sign up for Anatomic, getting ready to launch on the 14th. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday. This is a prequel to our already going Inglorious Rex title. You can check out Inglorious Rex, and it ships out next day on 9 Lives Comics. Or, because we're doing a prequel series next, you can jump on board with Anatomic and be a day one backer. Day one backers or sign up backers. If you sign up and you buy from our secret tier list, you do get this really cool lenticular card with purchase. It is a piece of plastic, and this is the graphics that will be on the card. We hope you guys join us on this next epic comic book adventure, Anatomic, coming out from 9 Lives Comics, and we will catch you guys again with another video.
If fighting was a god, I would worship him. I would bow to him. I would pray for victory. For he only grants opportunities. But behind every god lurks a devil. And the devil wants me to take a dive. My name is Anatomic. And this is how my legend was made.